The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Chairman, it is salutary to be back in the House talking about weathertight homes, and I thank the Minister for his contribution, and of course we are supporting the bill. In doing so, however, Mr Chairman, I think it behoves us to recall the folly that led to the situation, how this bill then impacts the legal situation, and how we might go forward. I want to concur with what my colleagues Dr Megan Woods and Phil Twyford have offered, and to remind the House that leaky building syndrome, quote unquote, was a phenomenon which occurred from around 1994 to 2004, and weather tightness was primarily an issue which derived from two things: the approved use of non-treated framing timber and various changes to building techniques which compromised weather tightness through the combined use of things like monocladding and the lack of cavities, and various technical changes which cut corners around window flashings and roof flashings and practical things like that. But what all those things have in common is that the building industry was deregulated during that period under pressure from for-profit enterprises with massive lobbying power. We all know who the largest companies were. I don't need to name names, but I don't think that there is a single member in this House who isn't well aware, with the painful lessons of history, that we must never forget that it is the right and proper role of government, in order to have a healthy mixed economy with a thriving market system, to put boundaries around enterprise in the name of public safety and the sustainability of enterprise. In this case, and we're not blaming individuals or naming names, in this case the reverse happened. With some recurrent naivety, a kind of market malaria, we thought we could trust the building industry to regulate itself. Self-regulation. Have we heard that phrase before? And the tragic thing about this particular tiptoe through the self-regulatory tulips was that the results have been manifest in broken homes and broken lives. And I think every constituent MP in the House will have had the most tragic, heart-rending cases come to their door. Families ripped asunder by the stress of not being able to deal with a leaky home, but not being able to afford to either sell it or fix it. Parliament, again, accepting probably shared responsibility for this. I'm an old dog, I can do that now. Parliament did not bankroll the solution. What it did do was sponsor a legal process that was as fair as we could reasonably get it, but it was imperfect. And iteration by iteration by iteration, we're back in the House on various occasions to fine-tune that process, and I commend the Minister for the changes that are in this Act. They're limited, but they're good. They make it fairer because it allows more claims to proceed. It saves 70-odd cases having to go to court, which this Act deems to qualify. It means that cases which are currently in progress, rather than having reached a particular stage, and the Minister's taking the broad view, and good on him, can continue through the legal process even though the expiry date of legislation has been received, and that's the right thing to do. So we have no argument here about the content of the bill, and we're supporting it all the way, but it's a bit like Anzac Day, lest we forget. It would be a deviation to say that there are a number of other industries in the past where a halcyon view of self-regulation came a multi-billion-dollar cropper. Telecommunications was one, which I had direct experience with. Remember Telecom New Zealand CEO Teresa Gatting saying that confusion was a weapon that they used to keep prices up. They kept customers confused. Remember that? Do you remember the massive lobbying effort that that company put in place, Mr. Chairman?
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
To prevent the public interest, which was the removal of monopoly rents and the investment in faster, cheaper broadband from occurring. And I want to commend Maurice Williamson and successive ministers, including Amy Adams, on both sides of the House, who have continued a drive towards the pro-competitive regulation of that industry. Sometimes in this House we get lost in a right-left dynamic where we think that either all intervention's good or no intervention's good. And usually, as in most parts of life, the truth's somewhere in the middle. And that regulation which sets clear boundaries for private enterprise can help everybody. It's like the rules of a sport. You know what the rules are and you've got a good ref, everyone can get on and play the game and have a good time. If either the rules are unclear or the ref doesn't know what he's doing, or the government stays on the sideline, or God forbid, as in the leaky building crisis, it removed the rules and said, oh, you guys just sort it out yourselves. Billions and billions of dollars later, suicides and divorces later, we're back in the House fine-tuning the solution. So have we learned the lessons of history? Well, I don't know, but here's a couple of theories, and I want to acknowledge my former colleague Shane Jones. Have we learned it in the supermarket industry? By goodness me, food prices are expensive in this country. And yet we have really, really high levels of production and a small population. We've only got 2 players in the industry. I wonder how competitive that really is, and I wonder if the Commerce Commission is going to take a close look at it. Closer to home on this one, building products. There are really only 2 companies that matter in that industry, and we have per unit prices for building products in this country so much higher than Australia. I really would like to see the regulators strip that down. That is the 21st century manifestation of the same market malaria that caused this mess. The blithe ignorance of commercial strategy and the abdication of the Crown's role to be a good and prudent referee. So I'm not naming names, I'm not casting aspersions, I'm not pointing the bone, but I am saying that we have a shared public interest in fair rules of the game and good value-creating market behaviour, hard work and enterprise. Labor stands for work, and we're focused on the future of work, Mr. Chairman, so that we can all get on and build a better country. And you know the divisions across the House aren't that wide. Most of us would agree with that. Most of us agree that pure Wolf of Wall Street capitalism ends in tears, and most of us don't want to live in the Soviet Union either. We want a system that works for ordinary Kiwis. And as the year unfolds, we're going to be exchanging ideas in what is usually a robust but pretty decent sort of a process about how we do that. Mr. Chairman, this is a great bill. Small but perfectly formed. Nothing like the Minister. He's big and perfectly formed.
I call Ron Martin.